Hi and welcome to Whatcha Making. Today in the shop I'm going to make a cutting board. I keep hearing how every woodworker at some point makes a cutting board and I haven't done one yet, so I'm feeling kind of left out. It's my turn. I went on a website that Steve Ramsey had recommended for 1024 Studio, 1024 Studio. And on there you can purchase a program from them. It's $10, totally worth it. You go in, you purchase the program, and you can design your own cutting board. It's pretty simple to design it, and you can make some pretty intricate designing. And then what they'll do for you with the program is they will create the write-up so that you can lay out your cutting board, and it puts it all in print for you, which is kind of nice. So in any case, today what I'm doing is, it's a little bit, it's a non-traditional way of doing it. So I have this piece of Jatoba, and it's 1.5 inches or 1.25 inches thick. Then I have 2 stalks of maple here that are 1 3/4 thick. So what I'm going to have to do is join the face grain of this to the edge grain of this to make my cutting board so that I can get the thickness. So first thing I'm going to do is cut my stalk down to length. Then I'm going to clean it up a little bit, get my slats that I need, each piece of wood, and then we're going to glue it up and cut it up into more chunks and glue that up again and hopefully end up with a cutting board by the time we're done. Let's get started. Okay, I got my feather board set up, my fence set up. This is set to 1 inch from the blade, and we're ready to roll. Now, to set up for my cut for the Jatoba wood, that's a different thickness, is a simple case of setting up the feather board to the width of the slat, because this is the size that I need the face to be to join on to the edge. So we set this into the blade, set your feather board, clamp it down, and now the fence will let me ride the rest in. Now I got to take these and clean them up because there's a bit of glue residue and junk there. Don't know if you can see that. A little bit here. A few of them have some marks on them. So what I'm going to do is run it through the saw, clean off this by 1/8 inch, and then clean this off so that this thickness is exactly 1 inch wide. Okay, so I've got my panels set up as per the instructions. So the pattern goes 4 pieces of the maple, a Jatoba, maple, Jatoba, da 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 da. It's all laid down. We're ready to glue it up, clamp it, do the first gluing, then we're going to plane it and carry on. So let's get the first gluing started. I'm going to use Gorilla Glue. We'll see how this goes. And I'm not wasting my time with the little tab to open it with. We'll just pour some on here. Well, step 1. And I'm going to try to keep these as straight as possible so that the ends are lined up. We'll see how that goes. I have also prepared a couple of these. This is just covered in in packing tape to keep this flat. I think maybe we will get these in place now. Like I said, what fun is it if I don't get covered in glue? Just lightly place them. Just to keep the boards from buckling. So I'm in the process now of building a jig to mount my router onto it so that I can plane this wood. And one of the biggest challenges I have when I'm watching videos and somebody goes, oh, you just mount this tool on there. The problem is that the problem for me is that This is the thickness of the plate for the router to mount. It's very thin. This is the thickness of the board that I'm going to mount. So as you can see, there's a considerable difference between them. What I've done with mine, and maybe you guys already do this, I don't know. I've taken this plate, I've marked the plate out, set it up, marked the spots for my screws so that I know where they're going. And because this board is too thick, what I've done is I've taken a Forstner bit and cut, there, maybe you can see that. I've taken a Forstner bit and I've hollowed this out so that I still have wood in the thickness, but I've taken this thickness away so that the screws will still go through. So here's what's involved in making a little jig to plane this cutting board, because I don't have a planer, so I'm going to plane it with my router. So this was very, very simple to make. All I did was take 2x4 stock, cut it just a little bit longer than the board itself. Then I cut 2 more 2x4s that are just slightly wider than the board, just marginally. So all I've done is screwed these in. Pretty simple. Screwed these 2 pieces in here, set it up. This 2x4 is just slightly taller by about 1/4 inch than the thickness of my board. So now the board is going to sit in here on the 2 2x4s. And it's just a little tiny bit wider than the board itself because I'm going to take these angle brackets. I don't want to put any screws into this, so I'm going to take these angle brackets and set them in the corners, screw them down, and they'll keep the board from moving back and forth. Then we take this jig, which has got my router mounted onto this board, and then the bit of, I've already set the bit to the height that I want to just very little bit shave this down, and then I'll keep coming in increments to shave it down just a bit until it's completely flat. And this will just slide back and forth across these rails. It keeps everything nice and square and straight and flat, and Bob's your uncle. Let's get started. Okay, so that's pass 1 done. Now, I'm going to go back through, drop the blade down a little bit more, clean it up a little bit more, and just keep coming down a little bit at a time until I get it down flush. I've cut up the next set of slices, and they're all 1 3/4 inches wide. So this is the face of them, and it's an end grain cutting board. So what's going to happen is this is going to get flipped, and this, they all get flipped on their ends. We'll clean the burn marks up when we router it out later to plane it. But in any case, to get the pattern for the board that I've laid out, what we're going to do is we're going to flip every other one. So what that's going to give me, I hope, if I can get it to line up nicely once it gets glued, is it's going to give me a small grid pattern here, or a small checkerboard pattern, here in the center. We're going to try to keep them as lined up as we can. Lightly touching, and then tighten these down. Okay, we've got the board out of the clamps, and I'm ready to plane it again for the top and bottom. clean it up. This will be the final planing, and then I'll be able to router my edges, clean up the edges, finish it off. So we're getting real close now. Well, now it's time for some routering fun. I figure I have all these bits in my cabinet up above, and I don't know what probably 70% of them are for. So I've taken this one out, and this bit is a 3/16 rabbet. What I'm planning to do with this is I'm going to run a rabbet right down here, just on the very edge, so that it'll make it easier to lift the cutting board up and down. So I figure I'll cut it first and then I'll do all my roundovers. So let's give this one a whirl. Okay, we're going to do a 1/4 inch roundover on the top and an 1/8 of an inch roundover on the bottom. Okay, now it's time to sand the hell out of this thing. That should take about another night. And, no, in all seriousness, I'm going to sand it now with 80 grit, clean it up, then it'll probably come down to 150, and I might even bring this down to 300. We'll see. We'll see how nicely it polishes up. Anyway, I'm going to sand it and sand it and sand it and do some more sanding. I love sanding. Yeah, really I don't. So I'm going to sand it, and then I'm going to put the finish on it. My most favorite part of any project is when the oil goes on, or the finish. In this case, I'm using the Butcher Block oil, and we're going to polish this sucker up and see how it goes. It's going to be probably about 4 coats that are going to go on the top. Here we go. I absolutely love how the oil brings out the color. Okay, we're going to let that dry in, put on a few more coats, sand her down, and she's done.